Death and Dementia, video 16. Unfortunately, we had to put Dad into memory care. So one of the things I mentioned in videos before, the biggest thing for Mom and Dad was to stay together, and we can't do that anymore. And so I'll go into that in another video because it's still fresh and we're still figuring out all the details. But it sucks. Let me tell you, it freaking sucks. There's and I'll go back a little bit. Some of the things I talked about health wise, and remember, I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutrition specialist, but I do a lot of research, and you need to do research on your own. If you think you're at risk for getting dementia, it's fucked. I mean, don't, if you can avoid going down this road, avoid it. There's a really good book that I read called Genius Foods, and it's on Amazon. I'll put a link attached to these videos through my Amazon Associates account, so you can get it there. And they talk about how your eating habits can help prevent diseases like this, and they talk about cholesterol and all the other shit. And you have to read it and figure out what you believe and where you want to take your life, because it's a lot of it's going to be personal decisions. Don't take my word for it. Make your own decisions. Another book that I just came across, and believe it or not, I actually read a book. Which last time I read a book was probably freaking high school. But Nobody Wants Your Shit. It was actually a really good book, and I mentioned some of the stuff before, but it talks about going through your stuff so your kids or your spouse or whoever is going to be taking care of your shit, it doesn't have to go through it. We're 2.5 plus years from moving Mom and Dad into assisted living, and we had gotten that pod to put things that we really weren't sure if they wanted to get rid of or if we wanted to get rid of. And so my brother and I are still going through stuff, and a lot of it's still hard to throw away. And then the deterioration of Mom and Dad is kind of beyond where you can keep up with it. But we don't want to take that chance yet where they have a moment of clarity and, hey, do you remember that Easter decoration I had or whatever? And we can't come up with it. So some of the stuff we're hanging on to, at least for now. As this disease has been progressing quickly with Mom and Dad, and over the last week or so, huge changes, nothing for the positive. I wish I would have known in advance that there are a lot of things that you're going to try to come up with solutions for, and I mentioned some of this, that by the time you end up with a solution, they've deteriorated past the point where they're going to even understand your solution. I mentioned the Jubilee TV, which we got for Mom and Dad's apartment. My brother's still in the process of hooking it up. He's been pretty busy, and I'm still hopeful that's going to help Mom. She's going to be the only one in that apartment now. But she's really kind of past the point where any of this technology stuff makes sense. So I don't know that it's going to help her or hurt her, but we're going to give it a shot. And looking at the reviews and all that, it looks like a good product, but I'll let you know how it goes for us. And like I said, there's a link to that on my on the notes here on the video. Another thing I should have mentioned before, which I don't think I covered, is friends and people with really good intentions that end up fucking you up. I mean, you're the one in charge. If you like my brother and I, if you have power of attorney, and you put a plan together, and someone just comes in and unintentionally shits all over it, and so we're fortunate that Dad has and Mom, they have a couple of friends from way back in their childhood, or high school years, and they tend to remember those people a little bit more often because they've known them back then. Like Dad is stuck in the 1950s in his head right now, but he remembers that friend because they were friends back then. He rarely remembers my brother and I anymore. and he usually talks to us as if we're one of his friends from back then. And we just kind of go with it. There's no real point in bringing it up. But as we start to get a plan moving for one of these things, for instance, at the beginning, when people finally found out that Dad had dementia, and they knew he had memory issues, but didn't know it was dementia. We were trying to keep that from Dad. We really weren't talking about it with Mom because it does them no good to know. But we were working with the doctors, and you had some well-meaning friends that were coming in, and they ought to be doing this, they ought to be doing that, and then you start getting phone calls from Mom and Dad. Well, why aren't we doing this and why aren't we doing that? When they're things we'd already explored with the doctors, and based on the medical condition, they're not possible. So, with the good intentions set aside, the what I recommend and what I've finally done, which has almost gotten rid of this stuff, is I've reached out to all those people and just said, look, I'm doing what we can, and we're working closely with the doctors. There's nothing we can do about dementia. There's nothing at this point. If there's a cure out there, no one's talking about it and without getting too political, there's a shit ton of money in the treatment. There's really not much money in the cure, but that's not possible. What we are trying to do is make them comfortable, toward the end of their life is the important thing. But as I talk to these people, I try to explain to them what we're doing, what we're reaching out to. And if they do have ideas, I can't think of anything. The doctor can't think of everything. My brother can't think of everything. If they do have ideas, we've explained to them to please reach out to us with the ideas. Instead of putting something in Mom and Dad's head and then it's just chaotic for everybody to go through. So this one's a little bit short, but I will get back on the updates about Dad going into memory care next time. Until then, God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Thanks for watching. I'm hoping these videos are going to help somebody out there. Please look at the attachments to the videos. I've attached just the websites of some of the people who I speak to, and I've also attached my Amazon Associates links to some of the products that we've used for Mom and Dad and some other things that look like they would be helpful for people in similar situations. God bless.